themselves the elite.
Better than you, and you know it.
If not us, who? And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
They want an alternative. They want something different to watch.
Change the world. We are going to change the whole universe!
They saw what wrestling was and realized what it could be.
All Elite Wrestling!
For the 5th time, it's Monday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for the next chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
How's it going, dude?
Oh, man. It's a wild week in the world of professional wrestling and specifically in AEW. Perhaps not the biggest week that we've had, but some of the announcements are crazy this week and some stuff that we've been building up to for a long time. Most of it's somewhat overshadowed by CM Punk briefly returning over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of that, to be honest with you. It's so weird and
it's not. What's funny
sketchy.
is when it happened, because I had heard the interview that he'd given years ago where he talked about doing this. When it happened, I was like, yeah, okay, yes, he talked about doing that before. So to see him do it now was so funny to me. But it's crazy that we have these big announcements and the top thing on Reddit is still CM Punk doing one move at a house show under a hood, you know.
just the one, and even it was so bad too.
He hasn't done it in half a decade almost.
Yeah, I was also reading the other thing about it is like, yeah, whoever set the ring up really fucked up.
Well, that and it's a shitty pony ring that someone probably has in like a shed when it's not being used. So,
Yeah.
It was crazy though, man. I don't know what's up with that. There is a very real chance that he's maybe headed back to a sport that he's good at, which would be wonderful.
Yeah, but I don't know, though, because I was also reading, like, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, he competed in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament and actually placed very well in that tournament, so it's really kind of up in the air. It's really kind of, it's like, whatever he decides to do is just what he's going to do, and, you know, we might see him pop up at a house show, and we might see him pop up at some random Jiu-Jitsu tournament. Who the fuck knows? He's just doing what he wants to do.
We might see him pop up in AEW.
Yeah, that would be pretty dope as well.
They want to sell out Chicago again really quickly. That'll be the way to do it, right?
Not that they really need the help, but yeah.
Not that they need the help. They kind of ought to move out of the Sears Center if they get it.
Yeah, if they get Punk, they should definitely move out of the Sears Center because that will sell out in like 20 seconds.
YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. You can be with us here every week on Seeing the Elite. Thank you to everybody so far who has popped onto those services and given us 5 stars, just like Meltzer. And we want to appreciate that and just say, hey, you know, if you got the time, we love that shit. Go and do that shit for us. Go give us 5 stars on that shit. Don't give us anything but 5 stars. I don't like that. I don't like that one guy who did that shit. But 5 stars would be wonderful. Facebook.com/
Cool. We have a review too.
These guys are nerds. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite is a place where you can keep updated with all our stuff. I'm going to try and fix the auto posting, which was all fucked up these last 2 weeks. But that's a great place to get in touch with us too. Or join us on Discord where we're having great conversation all week about All Elite Wrestling. tinyurl.com/AEWpod. That's tinyurl.com/AEWpod. No spaces, none of that chicanery, just AEWpod.
Before we continue, can we take 2 seconds because my dog just threw up?
Oh yeah, let's take a marker there.
Yeah.
Huh?
I will be right back. how you barf in 3 places.
What the fuck are you feeding that boy, man?
Regular dog food, but yeah, okay. It's like, why do you start barking when you're showing up? Stop.
To quote the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, he says, I don't think AEW should focus on the competition with WWE as much as developing their own product. Their success will come from that.
Before you get to the second sentence, we're like, okay, great quote, well done, Rick. And then it's just like, all right, we're off the rails again.
You know who Tony Khan is? Tony Khan is a sophisticated, intelligent, well-bred Nature Boy Ric Flair with money. God damn, Rick. Again, it's like, yeah, should focus on it. The first sentence is good, but like fucking obvious, right? And then like the worst advice ever. Like, hey, just develop a good product. Like, yeah, okay. And then
Duh.
and then the second one is just the man's been living the gimmick for like 50 years now. Like, I can't hold it against him, but it's like, really, Rick? His only point of reference and the greatest compliment he can give is that somebody's like him. Even when the sentence that he has to spell out in order to make this claim is Tony Khan is like me, except not like me at all.
Yeah,
there are like a number of reasons.
Literally billions.
Right.
Yeah, but it was so funny when I was reading this. I was like, okay, this is not bad. Well, hype it up because, you probably want to be involved in some way. And then it was like, okay, we're off the rails again. And yeah, you're sure, Rick, whatever you say, you can stop talking into the microphone. It's okay.
I mean, Ric Flair being involved with this company would be a big surprise considering
I don't think it'll happen.
where his daughter is, but
there's just too much involved in the with WWE, and he's never going to be able to get out of that contract.
Well, a lot of news to get to this week. I want to start out with something maybe not the best thing to lead the show with, but I thought it was really an interesting idea, a very forward-thinking concept, which is this partnership with Light. I imagine that's how it's spelled, right? Or pronounced as Light.
Probably, but you never know.
This comes from the Miami Herald. It says Light, the technology platform that puts the secondary market back in the hands of rights holders and fans. Which, stopping there, I don't think you can do both of those at the same time, but okay. Has partnered with All Elite Wrestling, the new wrestling promotion headlined by members of the Elite. The partnership means professional wrestling fans who aren't able to secure tickets to All Elite Wrestling events will have an opportunity to purchase valid tickets from fans who have returned tickets because their plans have changed. Fans are prompted to sign up and purchase tickets through Light. It then continues, tickets to pro wrestling events are historically sought after, which makes them a target for the secondary market, says Light CEO Ant Taylor. AEW is one of the most fan-centric organizations we've ever worked with. Together, we are offering a truly fan-centric ticketing experience with none of the threats of price gouging or fraudulent tickets that often find their way to popular sold-out events. The process is simple. Fans are interested in purchasing tickets to AEW events can visit allelitewrestling.com to make a reservation to be placed on a wait list until a ticket becomes available. Wrestling fans who have tickets but can no longer return them for a fair market price. Returns are then offered to the next person in line as newly issued tickets from the primary ticketer. It's an entirely automated, safe, and affordable experience. I think this is super smart. It's only really going to make an impact if they hype the shit out of it and everybody does it. But I think this is a really smart technological solution to potentially vastly eliminating the scalper market almost entirely.
Well, sort of.
Okay.
So the key thing on here, because I just pulled up the website, is you can only use this after the event is sold out.
Okay.
So that's a big deal. So that's not going to help. That's not going to stop scalpers at all.
That's so silly to me. I don't know why they don't take that way further. I guess because of the partnerships with Ticketmaster and shit like that, right? But
Right, and that it's basically just it's strange, but basically what is basically just a way for you to return tickets if you can't go. That's really all it is. But it only starts when the event is sold out. So Double or Nothing is, it's on there. You can go and blah blah blah, sign up and everything. But this is not going to prevent scalpers at all, because the scalpers are going to buy out the tickets, and then you're just sitting here with this ticket exchange for like 1% of people.
yeah, that's very silly. I don't know if that'll be helpful at all for anybody, really.
Right. So if they could integrate more, and where this becomes more of a marketplace type thing, and it's not just after it's sold out, and you can get away from StubHub, because that's really the big issue here is StubHub.
Right.
It always will be until that something is done about the industry, because you're going to have these people out here that have nothing. All they do all day is wait for events to go on sale, buy the most amount, the limit of tickets they can get by for the best seats, and then throw them on StubHub and then profit from there. So until you get rid of StubHub, this is not going to be beneficial.
Yeah. Well, that's a bummer, but kudos to AEW for trying, I guess, to create a solution around this type of really horrible secondary market practices from people. Even the first market, we're going to talk later about Fight for the Fallen going on sale, but even Ticketmaster seems to be in on the game, because the tickets that were $125 if you got in a pre-sale are now like $800. So that's kind of wild to me that this is things have gotten to this point, and hopefully websites like this can make some kind of dent. But again, if it's not the place you're buying the tickets in the first place, I really don't know how popular this thing is going to be. But hey.
So the $800 to these are okay. Do you want to know what we could talk about this offline? But I know exactly what this is.
What is it?
Basically, Ticketmaster buys them, and then they upcharge them as part of the Platinum Seats Club.
What does that mean?
It's just it's not a VIP package. It's just it's the best seat in the arena, so they bought some of the seats and are selling them.
They bought them from themselves.
Well, they bought them from AEW.
Sure.
And then now they're upcharging for them.
Maybe that's why you couldn't get them, because they were getting them on their own.
Could be, yeah. So,
the first big news we have to get into this week has been the talk of the town all over Squared Circle and everywhere else this week, and that's this whole time buy speculation, which we're going to go back and forth on throughout this story. Big news broke this week that Turner's deal with AEW might be a time buy. This is where a TV property buys time on a network, then sells ads to make the money back, say $600,000 for the 2 hours or whatever, and then any ads that they sell would work against that sort of debt for the property. This was met with the web by confusion, even though UFC and WWE both employed this model early on. And doing so with a major network is, if you have the money to invest, wiser than taking a deal with a minor network like Pop TV or some shit.
Yeah, the real issue, and I think the reason why people are so confused, is because this is the kind of thing that wasn't talked about 10, 15, 20 years ago. It was just, that was part of business, and you just did it.
Right. People weren't as inside with the internet and shit like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing to deal with this is really this isn't really news. This is really, and the whole, especially with the time buying thing, is some dipshit ran out here, is like, I have to drop this scoop, they're going to be on Turner, blah 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 blah, and it's like, and then didn't know anything else,
right? And
it was also sort of speculating, and then had to retract it and be like, oh well, they're doing it the deal's this way because I got more details on this, but I really still don't know, but this is kind of what I've heard. So it's kind of like, I understand why they're jumping because AEW it's the big buzzword right now, but
Right.
it's also like you guys need to calm your shit.
Yeah,
and
because even in the days since, sources within AEW have refuted the claim, along with Meltzer, who said the following. He says, "Time by is false. It's the exact opposite. Look at sports rights, Bellator, Matchroom, UFC on ESPN. People are offering tons of money for both weekly live programming and also to get their streaming services started. That's the reason why this thing is starting this year." He then finishes by saying, "One of the reasons the deal hasn't been signed yet is because of multiple bidders."
Yeah, and I mean it's also something to think about like this is like especially in the TV industry, the reason why a lot of networks are paying for weekly live content is because it's cheaper than produced content because they can pay a set amount of money. Say this is an example and it's way off base, it's way too low. They can pay $1 million for 32 weeks of programming and then repeat for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Compared to a produced show for an hour, which is a 22 episode run, they have to pay every single week. They have to pay all the actors, all that gigantic list. So it's infinitely more expensive to do produced content. Whereas if they can just do something live and they can drop it on any night of the week, say Friday night, which is typically the produced TV dead zone. Mm-hmm. It's profit from there. Boom.
Well, it was also thought forever that was something that these on-demand services couldn't do. That's not true anymore because there are a lot of on-demand services that do live content. But
most of them now.
Yeah, but there is still a concern, or rather, I think there's still this sort of stigma that if you want live sports content, you kind of have to have a cable package or something like that, right? So they're kind of sticking with the thing that they believe is still retaining people, whereas most people want to be able to tune in live to do the live sports content, whereas most people don't mind if they say miss the episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and have to watch it the next night, right? Like, it's fine.
Yeah, and that's another thing that is different with, say football compared to wrestling is like if I'm watching AEW live as it happens on Thursday night or I'm watching it on Sunday morning, it's not really going to change too much. Whereas if I'm trying to do that with like the NFL, I'm going to know every bit of everything that happens because it's reported in a billion different places.
Sure.
There's no way to really stay in the dark on that.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to...
And it's also wrestling, so I care a lot less about knowing what's happening.
I mean, that's true. Like, I know they'll never release them, but I'm sure that the numbers for people who like watch Raw on Hulu and stuff, the fucking hour and a half cut of Raw on Hulu, are
it's gotta be
pretty tremendous.
Yeah, it's gotta be insane.
I'm sure it's also... If you can see like what people actually watch and what people skipped, I'm sure you'd find very few people even watch the full hour and a half. But
I bet a lot of people that do quote unquote watch the whole hour and a half have it on in the background while they're cooking or something.
Let's move on. Being the Elite, episode 147, Spellbound. And this episode opens with Cody telling a rather animated fellow, I don't know who this guy is, and they never gave us a name tag for him. Some indie guy who is really exuberant. That he saw his librarian audition tape and thinks he's the guy. Cody offers him $1 million for year one, and the fellow is ecstatic. Michael enters and tells Cody that he can't do that. Cody says, "You're right. Is that Chris Jericho?" And Michael, of course, runs away. I love this quote. Cody says, "Don't worry about him. The guy didn't even bring his apple. He doesn't know." It's just great. Cody then offers the guy tier 1 $1.5 million. That's when Scorpio Sky enters, calls Cody his special boy, and reminds him that he can't offer this much, then exits. Cody says Sky is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Huge hog, but he doesn't know anything about business.
That was such an awkward thing to say in the midst of all this. Like, yeah, dude's got a giant cock. It's like, all right.
Just a great way to describe a friend in passing. Huge hog.
It's fine if you're talking. I don't know.
He says now tier 1 $2 million. Every time he's had to go back and make an offer, it's gone up by $500,000. Right?
I wish I would have been standing right there, like, sold, buddy. Let's do this shit.
Frankie Kazarian enters and then says, "You can't give this guy $2 million. That's that's SCU money, right?" He tells Cody he can't do it without clearing it with the 11 other EVPs, which was a funny joke. And Cody exits. Frankie gives the weirdo guy $20 and tells him to fuck off. And we get to the credit sequence. We then cut to a short video from the Bucks where they say they want to use this new platform to help those who helped them out in the past. As a result, they have signed former Dragon Gate booker Shima to a contract with AEW, which is awesome. This guy, relative unknown in America, to the American scene, obviously, but he is like super influential in really helping a lot of the wrestlers that we've known becoming big in the indie scene over the last, decade, get the sort of around the world exposure that they need through Dragon Gate, which is of course a huge promotion in Japan. And to have him on the roster, I think will be really interesting. He knows a lot about wrestling. He isn't necessarily a guy with the pedigree in America, but I think he's going to be great that they can break him as an older star here, and then also just sort of use his knowledge to help grow the company. I think it's a really smart buy for them.
Definitely is, and it's a way for them to also introduce a new, seemingly unknown name and build the star factor up, which they are pretty proven at being very good at doing. So yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting addition to the roster, and and then later in one of the other episodes, we found out his first match, which is going to be great.
Yeah, we then move on to a funny sketch where SCU tells a fan that merch prices have drastically inflated due to SCU's wild lifestyles, right? What is it? Christopher Daniels' son needs an Xbox every day of the month, right?
Yeah. So we just random shit.
Scorpio Sky collects rats, all of these things that they talked about.
Gotta have more comic books.
Right. Cuts to Shark Boy, who says, "Man, those guys have changed," and then tries to drink a cup of coffee through his mask, which I thought was funny. We then go to Joey Ryan at WrestleCon for a no music montage of people somewhat awkwardly asking where that blonde girl is.
I love that they got Mick to do it too. That was great, man.
Mick looked tired, by the way.
Yeah, he
in
looked
this,
real
man.
tired.
He looked fucking exhausted. WrestleCon takes a lot out of people.
Especially when you're doing signings and 3 stand-up shows.
And I'm sure he was pulled into panels when he had time and shit like that too. So, yeah, man. Joey spots a toy of Candace on a table and then hears her voice telling him that he really needs to learn how to defend himself. It sounds just like Candace, but then Allie walks into frame behind Joey and says, "Seriously, Joey, you really need to work on that." I thought it was a fine segment. I didn't think it was laugh out loud funny, but I thought it was fine in sort of pushing this story forward, although it doesn't really seem to have an end in sight.
I chuckled, but it was, it's kind of getting overdone at this point.
Yeah, we cut back to the cigar lounge for the reveal of the Fight for the Fallen pre-sale code. Unfortunately, on this show, we couldn't really report on this because this dropped Monday or Tuesday, and then the pre-sale was fucking Thursday, and the show's already at public sale now. So
yeah, we were kind of hoping that it would. I honestly thought, okay, they're going to reveal the code. It'll be week or two.
Yeah,
afterwards,
no, it was just a couple of days.
Yeah.
It was literally here's the code. All right, it's dropping tomorrow. It was oh, okay. But, I guess that's the idea, right? Is that only they wouldn't give it time to get spread around to people
Even
who
though-
aren't watching the show.
It was. Within like an hour, I saw
Sure.
3 posts about it on Squared Circle, so it's like, okay, it's pointless now.
Next up is a funny sketch between MJF, a ref, Sammy Guevara, and then finally Darby Allin. I won't go into detail here, but it was a lot of just classic MJF stuff. Seems like they're building these two into a program, him and Darby Allin. I think that's super smart. My feelings about Darby aside, these two could really elevate each other, with Darby as the babyface and MJF as the heel. I think is like great.
Yeah, I agree, and they kind of they need to put MJF into something, because the whole shitbag stuff it's good content, but
Right.
you're gonna have to build this into a feud of some sort. You can't just have him constantly being a shitbag for no reason. I mean,
Right.
he has a reason he's a shitbag, but yeah, they have to pay it off somehow. And I think with Darby, that's a good call, because it also builds up another seemingly unknown guy.
Yeah, I'm not like a huge fan of Darby Allin, but his sort of, I don't know, almost Jeff Hardy sort of put on darkness thing works for some people in a big way and can become hugely popular as a babyface. So, and I have no qualms about him in the ring. I think he's great in the ring. So him and MJF together, I think, is a really smart pairing of two super young guys who can really elevate each other through this.
Yeah, the only thing I would honestly say, and this may just be like when they actually taped this, is he needs to work on his face paint.
Yeah, it looked kind of like he wasn't really sure what he was doing.
Yeah, it was odd.
Maybe try to get on a taping with Pentagon and have him do it.
Or someone we're going to talk about later.
Right. Thank you for not throwing that out.
Yeah.
Cut to another room where Matt seems to be cracking under the pressure. Christopher Daniels is here to help talk Matt through it. He says being an EVP is really breaking him down. He's worried about getting fired. He says WWE won't touch me. I turned down $1 million. I'm blackballed. It's just hilarious. They, of course, had to bleep it. Like, they had to bleep a lot of shit this week.
Yeah, they
Matt-
did. It was funny, just the way that they did it, because it was like they said fuck a
very
couple times,
clear what you're
and there was
saying.
just not. I was like, okay, we don't give a shit about language, but random beeps is like, oh,
Oh, yeah, we'll get
gotcha.
sued.
Don't want to get
Matt-
thrown off YouTube again.
Matt then suggests that since Christopher Daniels is the talent relations guy, he should be the one to cast the librarian. This starts a heated argument between the two. The argument gets loud and rowdy until Pretty Peter Avalon comes in and stops the fight with an absolutely masterful librarian-grade shush. This slows time as Avalon sexy walks away from the camera, with Christopher Daniels and Matt Jackson are shocked. They just found the guy. It looks like Peter's going to get that contract after all, which is my favorite part of it, is that they set this up with the sketch with him and Cody, 6 weeks ago or whatever it was on Being the Elite, where he was offered the contract and then it got ripped away, and then they started the librarian gimmick thing, and now it's coming back full circle that he's going to be the librarian and get this big contract after all. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was definitely it was interesting too, and it was like, oh, nice. This is a real good callback to keep these, seemingly unknown random appearances of like, oh, okay, you are keeping some continuity here, and everything you're doing has a meaning, even if it is something fucking stupid as shit.
Then we go to a false ending, and then immediately cut to Nick and Matt in an unfinished room of some kind. Nick is pitching tag team hires to Matt. He shows Matt a picture on his phone of a badass East Coast tag team, in quotes. Matt agrees wholeheartedly, but they don't show who it is they're talking about. And I wouldn't care to speculate, because I'm really not that tuned into the sort of indie scene that they're tuned into.
Yeah, we could probably make some guesses, but we're guaranteed to be wrong.
Nick then pitches another mystery tag team. Matt doesn't like this one and says, but Nick says, if you still think we're the best in the world, we would hire guys like that. That's all I'm saying. The camera shows us only a glimpse of what's on the phone, but the glimpse, along with Matt saying that it's one of their greatest rivals ever, led most viewers to conclude that this was the Super Smash Bros. Right, which for some, Jonathan just gave me a shrug. For a lot of viewers wouldn't know who these guys are. Big PWG guys, and people who in the indie scene have a lot of credit. And they probably are being pulled in, which means the tag team lineup for AEW is getting pretty wild with Super Smash Bros., the Young Bucks, Best Friends,
Lucha
the
Bros.
Lucha Bros in there. Just a bunch of different great tag teams that I think could really have a pretty wild division going in.
And a lot of guys who can also just double up as singles wrestlers if, say, for whatever reason, their partner is hurt for a while.
Yeah. Or even just because.
Yeah.
Right, which is great. Alongside this episode, more information came out regarding Fight for the Fallen. The pre-sale took place Thursday. Tickets are still available now. And 2 matches were announced. Kenny Omega versus Shima, which will be a fucking incredible match. And Brandy Rhodes versus Allie, which will also be pretty awesome. Jonathan and I have tickets, so we're going to do a podcast from there after the show. It's going to be a fucking awesome night, and it's going to be unbearably hot and humid.
Yep. It's fucking Florida in the middle of July. It's going to suck.
But we're super excited. If you're also going to the show, tinyurl/AEW pod, come and talk to us. Come hang out with us in Discord. We're having a blast over there. Let's move on to one of the 2 Road to Double or Nothings that we got this week.
Which was really funny because it could have just been one. You can tell there was a distinct edit that they did.
Oh, it felt like it was supposed to be one, but then the scheduling just wasn't going to work out, and they couldn't announce Dustin until later.
And then it was also just an excuse for Cody to just be like, yeah, there's 2 episodes this week, guys. Get excited.
Which it wasn't, because one of them's like 15 minutes long and the other one's like 6 minutes or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Which,
yeah.
Speaking of that, if you're not following Cody on like Twitter, you should, because he's fucking hilarious.
I love Cody, man. To imagine that he would become who he is now and who he's going to be in 5 years. To imagine that would have come from Cody Rhodes, WWE fucking mid-Carter Cody Rhodes would become this thing is unbelievable. Like, really just a transformation.
It's wild, man. I mean,
excited to see where that goes.
Towards the end of his WWE career, it wasn't even mid-Carter. He was just straight jobber.
Comedy jobber, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm completely in the wrong saying I don't think between the ropes he's necessarily like a phenomenal talent in the way that Kenny Omega is or something like that. I think he puts on great matches, but I think you'd struggle to call him like the greatest professional wrestler ever to do the sport, right? But he's got so much more to offer as a mind, not unlike his father.
Yeah, I mean, he's a decent worker, but really it is his intelligence and his knowledge of the business and being around the business since he was a very small child and just sitting, next to Dusty for 20, 30 years ish.
Yeah,
and
man.
just sitting there and learning. So, I mean, this guy is a repository of knowledge about the business. Yeah, there's some things that he doesn't know and hasn't learned yet, but it's becoming small. That list is becoming smaller by the day.
And he knows perhaps the greatest lesson in business, and that's to surround yourself with people who know more than you. Like, if there's anybody who knows more than him, it's Arn, right? And and all these other people that they're pulling in, right? Like there's just
Arn and the Bucks for one, because they know more about
Jim Ross, right?
Yeah.
Like just he's A-grade players hire A-grade players, right? And so I think we're in a really wonderful place right now for him, and I never would have imagined it. This episode 12, starts with Joey Janela. Joey says he's 100% for Double or Nothing, and that judging by what he did at All In, he might actually die at Double or Nothing.
Pretty accurate, to be honest with you. Of everything I've seen with Joey Janela, it's like he does not give a shit about his body. And
no, I wouldn't say that the match at All In was like
All In,
incredible death match. It was somebody took a bump on a ladder. That was kind of the worst thing that happened, right?
Yeah, he was exaggerating definitely about the All In match, but obviously he's going to exaggerate about that one because it's the road to Double or Nothing.
Right.
But his matches at like the spring break and stuff that he's done are insane.
Sure. The idea of death seems to excite the bad boy Joey Janela, as dying in the ring would strengthen his legacy. It looks as though he's in the Battle Royal, is what he said, along with MJF apparently at Double or Nothing.
Which is that's fine. It's at this
I wish
point,
both
the
of
card
those
is
guys
getting...
had bigger matches, but if you look at the card for Double or Nothing, they already got a lot of guys.
Yeah, so it's fine because obviously they'll have bigger matches down the road. The Fight for the Fallen is we know 2 matches, that's it.
Right.
There's also the Fighter Fest is coming, and then TV will be probably announced in the next few weeks. So the bigger matches will come.
Yeah. We fade to a speech cut at DDPY Studios. I don't know maybe they call it the dojo or something pretentious like that, but it's their studios. Wherein Cody is praising Dylan.
It's actually somewhere around where I live, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. DDP's around there, right?
Yeah. All these guys, most of these guys live around Atlanta.
He's praising Dylan, a video editor for DDP Yoga and the main video editor for The Road to Double or Nothing. Which, that being the case, he's doing an outstanding job.
Phenomenal job, yeah.
Making something that really does look professional. It's almost shameful, like how shitty being the Elite looks and how great Double or Nothing looks.
It really
Road
is,
to
dude.
Double or Nothing looks.
Anyway. If the Road to Double or Nothing episodes were longer, this is this kind of thing I would not be surprised to see on like HBO.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, and if they sort of have him involved with television, I think it would be great. I think he's got a bright future in that regard. Dylan also works as a professional wrestler named Sunny Days. Cody invites Dylan / Sunny Days to take part in the Battle Royal at Double or Nothing. Dylan shares a heartbreaking story of depression and triumph through therapy and wrestling. I fucking love that they're giving this guy a shot. It seems like it means the world to him. And if your performers love what they do, your audience will love what they do. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great choice, especially for something like the Battle Royal, where it's like you can really test to see if a guy has a chance to get over, but if he doesn't, then whatever. It's a Battle Royal. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter.
And I mean, if he has a bad showing in Battle Royale number 2, give him a shot in number 3. It's no big deal.
It really doesn't matter.
Because you're always going to need bodies for these things.
And I don't know, man. I think when you're a professional wrestler, I think 2 things matter kind of more than anything. It's moments, if you can create great moments in the ring. And your story. It's almost like being a reality TV star or something, right? Where the story that you bring with you is what's important. And I think Dylan has a decent story. It's not all that different from anybody else's story, right? Like, lots of people deal with depression, and but very few people get to live their dreams and push forward and live their dreams. And so if he can sort of exude that and really take that on, I think he has a good chance of being something that the fans want to see, which would be wonderful for him to go from good video editor guy to a talent as well behind the scenes there. They follow this with an announcement.
He's also kind of, he's doing it the right way. He has a full backup plan. So, he's doing the wrestling because it's his passion, but if it doesn't work out, he's like, I'm pretty damn good at video editing, so I can just do this in my spare time because I can.
Well, I assume he's the editor. I also assume he's someone involved as a DP, but I don't know that for sure. They just say he's the editor, but I don't really know if Cody's using that correctly. You know what I mean? But maybe they have a separate director and DP or whatever, but I think maybe he's doing all those things. I don't know.
I have read that they do have a separate director. I can't remember his name, but he has done something else wrestling related. But, you need a production crew is multiple people, so it's also there's that 1% that this is still kayfabe.
They follow this announcement by announcing that they've hired Cody and Brandy's personal nutritionist as staff nutritionist for AEW talents. This is great because judging by her products, she does a great job. Cody and Brandy both in phenomenal shape. And it's definitely good to have someone on staff providing that for people. Because like Cody said, it's math. It's a bunch of stuff that even people who do this professionally don't necessarily have the time to wrap their heads around. So
I mean, it's one of those things that also shows that they are going out of their way to take care of the people that are their employees.
Yeah,
and keyword on employees right there. But so it's these guys are all over the place. They're on the road, 5 days a week. They don't have time to sit down and meal prep or think about what they need to be, what vitamins they needed to have. So if you have a nutritionist on staff, they can tell you okay, here's your meals for the next 7 days. Cool. That helps them out tremendously. Yeah. And it keeps them from, popping into, Wendy's and getting 3 double cheeseburgers or whatever.
It doesn't necessarily prevent them from that, but it makes them at least more cognizant of it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely does.
We cut to a scene with Brandy. She calls Allie and pitches the match at Fight for the Fallen. Allie agrees, but wants to make sure it's not hung up on the personal shit that they've talked about before. Brandy denies it, then bids Allie goodbye. Brandy then calls an unknown party on the phone and requests that they be present at Fight for the Fallen for, quote-unquote, that personal thing I was telling you about. The person agrees, Brandy hangs up, and then tells the cameraman not to use that, which was still included in the episode, so I guess Dylan's in trouble now that we've established who the editor is.
Yeah, right? So that brings up an interesting thought in my mind. So, all these episodes are called The Road to Double or Nothing, but, we're starting to get to the point where Double or Nothing...
Yeah, they're talking about Fight for the Fallen.
Yeah, Double or Nothing is kind of completed, so to speak, and we're moving into Fight for the Fallen, so it's kind of getting to the point in the next few weeks, maybe after Double or Nothing, that this is either going to stop completely or they're going to have to rename it to be AEW behind the scenes or something.
They just call it Road to Fight for the Fallen for a month.
It wouldn't even be a full month. It'd be 2 weeks.
Yeah, from May 25th until it would be a month, but it wouldn't be that much longer than a month.
Yeah, but there's also Fyter Fest in the middle too. So
right, the Road to Fyter Fest, and then 2 weeks later, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think they should rename it and make it something different, but or maybe they'll stop it. I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. Yeah. I wouldn't think they would stop it if they can continue to make it, because I think it's great.
It's also possible that it gets worked into the TV deal, and this becomes a part of their, quote unquote network. So that could be also some pretty interesting stuff.
I would have absolutely no problem with it. Kind of an interesting way of looking at it where, especially if it's a tape show, where you have the wrestling matches, but then in between is this sort of faux documentary style thing with this sort of roll in of real stuff and kayfabe. I think would be smart and kind of an interesting take on it that would provide an alternative at a really high production value.
Yeah, and it would definitely be a way for them to stand apart from everything else that's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And lends themselves to this sort of reality-based programming they've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
During this whole scene, Brandy's sitting in front of a fucking gorgeous swimming pool, and it's really distracting. I just wanted to say that. Fucking beautiful swimming pool she's sitting in front of. Then I've been sitting here during a Maine winter for the last like 6 months, so I'm just like, oh my god,
swimming pool. Ooh.
Next scene with M to the J to the F, man. Oh my god, I loved it. He announces that he's in the Battle Royal and he's going to win, in parentheses, with ease, because he's not a glory hound. He's there to outlast his opponents and take home the unique opportunity that will be awarded to the winner. Again, they haven't told us what this is yet, but MJF also in the Battle Royal, which makes me think Darby maybe also be added.
I would say really anybody that gets announced, unless it's like a monster talent,
mm-hmm.
is probably going to be added to the Battle Royale for Double or Nothing at least.
Yeah.
Or it won't be included in Double or Nothing and will be, the future events and forward.
Cody reveals that they're developing Olympic boxing bronze medalist Anthony Ogogo for AEW. Ogogo tells a great story about competing in the Olympics while his mother was in the hospital being treated for an aneurysm.
This did strike me as very odd, but it was a very interesting story.
Thankfully, she has since recovered from the anguish. Anthony took home a bronze medal. Signings like this are crucial because they are the signings that will make AEW more than just the best of the indies. Producing original homegrown stars is super important, and I look forward to seeing what they end up doing with this guy. That's generally my feeling on it. It is kind of weird that they're producing new guys this early, but I think there's some wisdom behind that. They really want to be like, okay, we really need to start making new stars now.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. But I mean, I feel like he's one of these guys that they're going to have to be very, very careful with, because it's kind of like, when Brock came back after that first UFC run he did, mm-hmm. and he was literally punching the shit out of people.
Sure.
It's not, and especially since this guy is a, full-on amateur boxing guy.
Right.
He's going to have a real hard time actually, pulling his punches.
He'll be fine. They can teach a man to throw a fake punch. I'm not that worried about it. It'll just be interesting to see. This seems like a company where they're coming out on all cylinders, and kind of every match needs to be a big name and needs to have a lot attached to it. That's what worries me more, is like where they're going to find space for this guy. But this is obviously a down the road thing, which is kind of weird that they announced it now, but it's a down the road thing. And they'll have space for him on TV, I assume, at some point. So.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing here is like, right now, yes, it's all about building big net matches and having name value there. But
mm-hmm.
we're essentially they're just doing pay-per-views right now. When it comes to a week-to-week TV show, you're gonna need that depth there. Because in a week-to-week TV show, you can't just have big names every single week. It's not gonna work.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, you're gonna need a homegrown talent like this who may or may not accidentally break someone's jaw.
The final shot is Michael Culari walking up to a door, knocking on the large oak door surrounded by stone architecture. The door opens as this episode fades to black, leaving only the words "to be continued this weekend," which seemed kind of arbitrary that they pushed it back. But again, I really honestly think it was just a timing thing, and they weren't going to be ready to announce it on Thursday or Friday when these usually go up. So
Yeah, I think it really is the real thing, because it probably came down to like the 60-day mark or whatever would be like Saturday at noon.
right.
And they didn't want to push the episode back because they're on a very seemingly strict schedule. So it's like, okay, let's just cut this part out. We'll drop it at, Saturday night. It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. The road to Double or Nothing 13, and they hit the ground running here. They don't bury the lead. We go right into it. Cody's opponent at Double or Nothing is Dustin Rhodes. And we're going to talk about the implications of this after, but I kind of want to just go over this sort of promo that he gave. He says, "This is not a new beginning for me and my career. I have done it all, literally 30 years in the business. My legacy is intact. I am Dustin Rhodes. I'm getting older. They're getting younger and faster. But just like every arena that I go to and do something very spectacular, because I give 110% every time that I step through those ropes." There's a great shot here of Dustin opening a can of gold face paint and then casting it away, right?
That was great, man.
Very dramatic.
That one little tiny bit that just needed to be there is like, fuck you.
He then paints some red on his face instead as his sort of monologue continues. He says, "They chant you still got it. Well, I never lost it. So this isn't a new beginning for me. This is one last ride. Let's bill it as one last ride. That's okay. That's fine. It's awesome. I like it. But it sounds to me like Cody is trying to put me out to pasture or something. Good luck with that, little brother. Good luck with that. I have done just about everything there is to do. He is just filling his shoes right now. He has a long way to go. I say this a lot. I'm very proud of my brother Cody. He is just now coming into his own shoes. He hasn't filled them yet. Just like me back in the day, I wanted to fill my dad's shoes and I could never do that, but I didn't know that because I wasn't old enough to realize it. He's not old enough to realize that yet. Dad was very charismatic. Yes, I'm great bell to bell. I don't consider myself better than Cody. I don't look at it that way. He is very talented in the ring. Now he's at the helm of this gigantic company fixing to take off and shoot to the moon, AEW. He's got a lot of pressure on him. He has a lot to learn. Also, Cody was raised much differently than I was. And I was there for a lot of that. I saw a lot of it. How they were treated as opposed to how I grew up. To be quite frank with you, I think he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. There is a rift between us. I don't really know exactly what that problem is or where that rift actually is, but it's probably something to do with his upbringing. Him being the younger brother, 16 years younger, he sometimes makes it a point that it's my fault that I wasn't there for him. Well, I was there when he won 2 state champions in wrestling in high school. I was there for him whenever he needed. I was always there for my little brother. Cody didn't ask. He didn't ask me for help with the Stardust character. That was his deal. You know, quite frankly, he did an awesome job at it. He did a great job at the Stardust character, which, of course, this they had to bleep as well. Yeah. He says, that was his deal. You know, quite frankly, he did an awesome job at it. He did a great job as the Stardust character. I'm not going to send him down a path that's going to hurt him. To me, that's a jab at my side. It's hurtful. He's my blood. I love him with all of my heart. For him to say that hurts me. I've never told anybody that until today. He's always saying that him and I have nothing in common. Well, I beg to differ on one thing in particular. That's going out and getting something. That's leaving the nest and going out on your own and doing it. I left the nest. I left the Dustin Rhodes name to do something that was way before its time, that shocked the world. I pulled it off and did a great job at it. Here we are 30 years later, and Cody is doing the same thing in a different way. He says, I know everything there is to know about my little brother Cody. He is one egotistical son of a bitch. So many times that I have told him how proud I am of him, how much I love him, how Dad would be proud of him, and everything that he's accomplished. Never, not one time, never has he said, "Thanks, man. I really do value your opinion. You're wonderful. I love you to death." No, I don't get that from Cody. There's a shot of Dustin painting red and black on his face in a very Darth Maul type pattern. And color scheme, for that matter. Dustin continues and finishes. He says, "The red stands for life, the black stands for death. The past that I've had was dark, and I came out and survived. I think Cody's making a mistake having a match with me. I do. Cody is facing his reckoning. There has to be an end to it. So you're going to get all of me. The world is going to get all of me, everything that I have. This is a fight that needs to end. This should have ended years ago. One last ride, or is it?" And then that's the end of the episode. It is literally the only thing they did in this whole episode was reveal this, which is cool, man. I think this is a great match to put on at this point. This sort of the last piece of unfinished business that would have been outside of this company for Cody, and sort of the last thing that he can put down that will be, that's it. And now I can move forward in this future that has been laid out for me and my friends.
Yeah, I agree. And this is also very reminiscent to the match that Cody had at All In. This is probably going to be very much the same type of match.
Oh, sure.
With that, that very old school type style. We had talked about it for a while on Discord and stuff that, we were hoping it was someone else. It was just, avoid the low hanging fruit here. I'm fine with this match. It'll be interesting. It'll be a very great story being told. And, it's crazy that Dustin can still move the way he does at his age and how long he has actually been doing this.
Right.
From parts of the promo that I just kind of stuck out to me. I do remember when Cody did win those state championships because I was in high school around the same time. Wrestling was still a thing. So, it was in the local newspapers and, they talked about Dusty and all that. And, I remember all that shit. But at the same time, I always thought the rift between them was Dustin's choice. That's just me because he is so much older and, he has, his mom has a different mom and everything. And it was always that he sort of resented Cody because Cody or Dusty kind of spent more time with Cody when he was a kid compared to Dustin. But that's, in the background, it is what it is. I'm excited about this match. I've seen online some people bitching and some of the news outlets bitching that this is why aren't they doing a tag team? They'd be so much better as a tag team. It's like, no. This is the good match because they can do their match. They can have it now, and then in a few months, if they want to try a tag team, cool. If they don't, then when Dustin wants to step away and go backstage, everything has been settled.
I think that's the buy here, right? They have him do a few matches, and then they move him in as a producer or something like that.
Yeah, he would be a great ring producer, match booker.
Yeah. And I think there were people online. The biggest complaint that I saw were people being like, "Oh, when they fought each other in WWE, it wasn't a good feud, or what? They didn't have good matches." I don't know that I 100% disagree with that, but I definitely think there was a merit to being like, "Okay, let's see what you guys can do with the cuffs off." You know what I mean? And really go at it.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing about it too, because like those WWE matches were Goldust versus Stardust. They were very hampered and they were very tied to the WWE, ring producers and everything.
Right.
So when they have something like this where they can go as far as they want to and do what they want to do, not have to portray these two seemingly silly characters, I think you're going to have a much better match.
I think so as well. I definitely think so as well.
And I do agree. The feud that they did have in WWE, it absolutely was silly, but it was like, what do you expect?
Definitely underwhelming, but I think the everything has changed about these two people now. I think Cody's a much stronger wrestler than he was then.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
without them having to deal with the match producers and you can't break this table because someone else is breaking this table later and all that fucking WWE bullshit and the slow down, constantly slow down shit. Like, I think people who were down on those matches are really going to be surprised by how much of a difference it made to not be beholden to the powers that be in that case.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
And to have the ability to tell a story that they want to fucking tell instead of a story that has to be filtered through a 70-year-old man who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about anymore.
Yeah.
Who was never a good writer to begin with. I mean, really just like anything that he comes up with that he takes credit for, he's been doing the same fucking story for the last 20 years. So it's shocking to me how people are still in Camp McMahon on any of this shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments that people like attribute up to him. Like one of the biggest thing that comes to mind right now is like the New Day is like, yeah, he can't take credit for the New Day. That is literally those three guys. Every promo they do, they wrote.
Yeah, and this is just one of the few times where he's had the good graces to get out of the fucking way.
Yeah. Which is pretty
isn't
much
always the case.
The 1 in a million chance nowadays.
This motherfucker sent these people out there called the Viking Experience, so I don't want to hear about fucking Vince McMahon. I will say, though, this fucking Dustin Rhodes shirt that they put out on Pro Wrestling Tees is ugly as shit.
It's like the typical wrestling MMA shirt, though,
I
man.
wouldn't even say that. It's like a fucking country music T-shirt. It's horrible. Oh, my God, it's ugly. Oh, man.
Yeah, that's what I said. The typical wrestling MMA NASCAR T-shirt.
Sure. The last thing I want to end on before we go out this week, I don't think we can talk more about Dustin Rhodes. I think it's going to be great. We're going to talk more of it in the lead up to Double or Nothing, obviously. But
yeah, probably
it was
that.
more or less what we saw coming. I mean, like people listen back to a few weeks ago where we initially reported this on Stay Away from Gold, where they had kind of teased this, and we said, "Oh, we think it's him," and then he, of course, had come out and been like, "Oh, this is all bullshit," and then turns out he was lying to you. Because...
Yeah, shocking. Yeah, like you said, we'll talk about this a lot more probably like on that week, the episode before Double or Nothing, where we're going over everything.
Yeah, the week before Double or Nothing, we are going to do some news, but we're going to try to stay light on that because we are going to go over the card for Double or Nothing, and we're going to make predictions. We're going to do some scorecard predictions on Discord, so if you're a Discord member, you can join in with us with that, and we can all score each other and see who's going to be the head guy.
But at least mine and Bryce's will be, completely recorded because we will tell you all of our picks on the show.
Jonathan's going to be so embarrassed.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sure,
People know who are fans of Podcast Underground. When it comes to making picks, Jonathan, he can't win.
Fuck you. That's right.
He's never beat me, and he never will.
Oh, fuck you. I beat you when we were doing Brothers of the Discussion. I whipped your ass one pay-per-view because everyone scored 7 points, and I scored like 130.
That's true. And if Anthony was on this show with us, we'd both be fucked because he's actually good at this shit. I'm just not
and that
terrible.
One friend of yours who doesn't watch wrestling at all and nailed it for 6 months. It was infuriating.
An interview with Fightful this week regarding the hiring of post-WWE talent, Cody was quoted saying, "I've jokingly said it's currently about 5%. Chris Jericho, Jim Ross, Cody Rhodes, a few others maybe. It's not the same. Having that equity with WWE is wonderful, but you've got to be able to cut it and meet the standards that people have for their actual bell-to-bell contest. That number might increase, there being the opportunity to exist for the boys and girls to make money here or there, just to have the options. If they can play, they're going to play. But right now, the recruitment is more about freshmen. I want to build a new class of guys. I don't want them to feel like they were set up and that was it." I want them to feel like they were set up to win and succeed. Right now, it's a lot of faces you've never seen and people you'll be surprised when you do see them. And so that's kind of an interesting look at the booking philosophy. This is sort of the idea behind Anthony Ogogo and a number of others that have come up, as well as the sort of younger talent that they're buying in MJF and Darby Allin and a bunch of these guys, Sammy Guevara, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's going to be these sort of indie stars are going to be there, you know, your Young Bucks and Cody and Hangman and people like that, right? But they are really trying to build a foundation of younger stars in here, which I think is super smart.
It's a very interesting concept too, because especially with the past like 6 weeks of, you know, reading around on the internet with people, as soon as AEW was announced and people were like, oh yeah, this is going to cause that mass exodus from WWE, and they're just going to scoop up all these guys. And it's also, it's like, you know, there probably will be a mass exodus from WWE, and it's seemingly starting to happen now because it's that time of the year when WWE starts trimming the roster because technically their year has ended and they're starting their new year. So, yeah, you do have people leaving and stuff, but that doesn't mean AEW is going to pick them up. They're going to be very particular with the talent that they choose that were WWE people because they don't want to be treated like Impact and ROH and all these other promotions that were like, oh, yeah, it's just where you go when you get kicked out of WWE because you're a piece of shit.
Right.
So
no, they want to create something new, right?
Yeah. Now,
the funny thing is WWE, they bring viewers, post WWE guys bring viewers, but if you hire too much of them, then it puts a stigma on the company.
Sure. And I mean, there I'm sure are people that they do hope leave WWE and they hope to pick up, but it's going to be a small number of those people. I would say maybe 10.
You don't want to be seen as sort of taking WWE's table scraps.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to be seen as scooping up somebody because, you know, like buying like a Jack Swagger or someone like that to be like, oh, remember him? You remember WWE, right? And then making him champion, you know? And shit like...
We're not salty.
All right, R.I.P. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Give us 5 stars, and we'll be eternally grateful. But mostly, just join us every week here on Seeing the Elite. We're having a fucking great time, and everybody who's reached out, thank you so much. It really warms our heart that you've reached out to say so many nice things. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite to stay up to date. And if you want to come and join us in all the fun that we're having, tinyurl.com/AEW pod. Super exciting week. A lot of great things coming up in the future. Every week has been just awesome with amazing announcements to talk about. And this week is no different. Thank you so much for joining us. Jonathan, do you have anything more to feed to these people before we go?
No, man. If you guys are coming to Fight for the Fallen, let us know, though.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we'd be interested to meet you.
Yeah, get in touch. We're going to see you around next week. Thank you so much. Go out and change the world.